Snake oil, and more snake oil. But are they really? Hello and thank you for clicking on this video where I'll be sharing my experience on cables. Okay, before you click away, just hear me out. I've always read or heard that cables affect the sound of your IEMs. So for today's video, I have with me 3 premium IEM cables from Effect Audio to test this theory. And hopefully through this video, we find out if cables do make a difference or is it all just snake oil. But before we begin, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Damien from Australian Headfly Tour once again for arranging this tour and allowing me to be a part of it, and to Effect Audio for graciously providing these cables and the IEM for the tour. I truly appreciate it, and if you've been enjoying the content, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. I see you when you don't subscribe, so subscribe and you will officially be crowned an audiophile. Okay, let's talk about some cables. As part of this tour, they also provided the Gaea from Elysian Acoustic Labs in collaboration with Effect Audio, which is an IEM I've written my impressions on, and if you'd like to check that out, link will be in the description down below. And if you want a video form of it, then I hope to make it one day. But today's video isn't about the Gaea. It's about these 3 premium cables from one of the most well-known cable company in the audio world, Effect Audio. They are another company based in Singapore, and they have produced some of the best looking cables in the market today. For example, this stock cable that comes with the Gaea, look at that blue and gray color scheme on the cable. It feels sturdy, it feels premium, and I'm still mad that this cable is not for sale and only available as part of the Gaea package. I need this cable so badly in my collection. It will look so good with my Maestro SE Customs. Anyway, moving on. So for this video, I'll be talking about the Effect Audio Aries S8 wire, Cadmus 8 wire, and Code 23. As these cables were part of the tour, unfortunately, there isn't any unboxing experience, so the cables just comes with their respective pouches, and that's pretty much it. Let's start with the Cadmus and Aries S8W, which stands for 8 wires. And at first glance, if going by the looks, they look like the same cables but with different color scheme. And even though they are both copper cables, the Aries S is made from UP-OCC pure copper lids, and the Cadmus is a UP-OCC silver plated copper lids. They both look and feel really premium. They have the right thickness, they're still lightweight, and that weave is like a snake. Does it have snake oil sound? Patience, more on that later. The splitter and ear hooks all have that sturdiness to it. Oh, I want to peel this off so badly, but this is a tour unit, so I have to resist myself. The temptation. All in all, sound aside, if you're purely talking about looks and feel, then the Cadmus and Aries S just looks and feels the part. Then we have the Code 23, which sounds like a cable suitable for spies. This is Effect Audio's flagship copper cable that is retailed at $600 without any discounts, which, not gonna lie, it's a really expensive price tag for an IEM cable, especially when the Aries S and Cadmus are about half the price of the Code 23. To put into perspective, you could get a Maestro Mini, an EJ07M, or Moondrop variations with some change with the price of the Effect Audio Code 23. So what does a $600 bring to the experience? Well, for starters, it comes with its own carrying bag to keep your cable, and it comes with what Effect Audio is naming the term X and Con X, which is quite an epic name alternative for interchangeable terminations and pin connections. The interchangeable terminations has the same concept as a stock cable for Maestro SE, where you have to align the pin to the hole for connection and you need to screw the base to be able to plug or unplug it. And the pin connections are swappable, but they are really tiny, so you might want to be extra careful because dropping these, or worse, losing them, will cost you dearly. Swapping them is a simple twist like a screw. For the looks and feel of the Code 23, there's no denying this. If Indiana Jones lost his whip, he can use these because these are really stiff. It has some weight to it, it's got some pull. If you thought the cable on the Unique Melody Mesh Mark III was stiff, the Code 23 trumps that. If you're all about wanting a sturdy feeling IEM cable, then this is a dream come true because I feel my IEM is going to break before this cable does. However, for my own personal use, these are way too stiff for me. If I'm not untangling this properly, I'm going to feel that pull from the Code 23. So the moment of truth. Do cables actually matter in affecting the sound of your IEMs? So my first step to prove this is to try to measure the cables using a coupler and using the same IEM, same ear tips, and carefully changing the cables and then hitting that measure button. And I made sure I measured twice to get a consistency, and check out the following. So the purple is the stock cable from the Monarch Mark III, green is the Aries, orange is the Cadmus, and blue is the Code 23. And from my first measurement test, the Cadmus and the Aries are pretty much identical, with only a few differences happening for the stock cable and the Code 23. Now before you go shouting, I told you cables don't have sound or cables don't matter, just hold on a second and check out these frequency response measurements. So from these graphs, you'd be thinking, oh, maybe they do sound different. Well, I hate to break it to you, these measurements are all from the same cable, which is the Effect Audio Aries S. And the frequency response were influenced by taking the IM out of the coupler and putting it back in, and measuring it again each time, which may have caused some effect that has affected the measurement. Could be the positioning of the IEM, could be the wearing of the ear tips, I don't know for certain, but the variables are there. So what I'm trying to show here through my experience is that trying to test if cables influence sound through frequency response measurements is impossible under this setting, because you'd almost need like a perfect setting, like have 3 IEMs of the same type and without any tuning variances, hooked up to an equipment at exactly the same location and position, played using the same ear tips, source, etc., and measured exactly the same way. And unless you can achieve that kind of setting with that kind of equipment, some may be able to do that, but definitely not me. And because of that, the measurements alone just isn't enough to prove whether or not cables can or cannot influence the sound of IEMs. So the only other measuring equipment would be our very own ears. And from this point on, you could call it snake oil, you could call it psychoacoustic, whatever it may be. If you're on the camp that all cables, regardless of price, sound the same, congratulations, you managed to escape another black hole this hobby is capable of opening, and you can sit back and enjoy your $20 cable. And thank you for watching the video. However, if you're still curious to hear my experience, if any, let's explore. So to fully test these cables, I brought these cables to work to really familiarize myself with its sound, and typically I get about 4 hours or so playing music for about 2 days, and then I'll swap cables and do the same. So the first 2 days was with the Cadmus, and the moment I switched to the Aries S from the Cadmus, the sound opened up a touch. There's a touch more sizzle to the treble, and the bass was missing a little bit of that weight that it previously had on the Cadmus. Because on the Cadmus, there's a bit more weight to the bass, the treble was a little bit more smoothed out. So for the Monarch Mark III, which is the IEM I use for testing, I personally preferred it on the Cadmus, because I'm still getting all that bass, there's a bit of fullness to the note weight, and the treble is sufficient while still being smooth. And those differences were evident, at least for me, in my listening experience. When I was on the Aries S, I missed the presentation I had with the Cadmus, and if cables supposedly sound the same, I'm wondering what's making me feel this way. However, going from the Aries S to the Code 23, the differences were harder to discern. However, it sounded to me like it was leaning closer towards having the same profile as the Aries S rather than the Cadmus. So I went back and forth between the Aries and Code 23, and it does carry a touch more note weight and it's a touch smoother. So it's like carrying a little bit of the Cadmus and Aries' presentation. However, these differences are so subtle that unless you're constantly swapping cables and playing the same song over and over and over again, you'd probably not even notice the difference at first listen. If you listened to the Aries S and then took a dump and came back and listened to the Code 23, you'd be asking what's the difference. However, I do believe from this experience, when a cable and an IEM goes well together and you hear it, it's like getting in the right car and touching that steering wheel. You can't explain it, but it just feels right. At the end of the day, it's always a good idea to try out these cables first before you purchase it, if they are available to you at your local stores, because your experiences may vary from mine. So in conclusion, do I personally hear any differences? Yes, but it's very very subtle. Can I prove it with measurements? Unfortunately, not with my current setup, and that sums up my experience with these cables. But now I open the floor to you, the viewers. Have you had any experiences with sonic differences between cables? Have you listened to different cables at different price ranges? Or it could just be a simple feeling that you couldn't explain. A certain cable pairing with certain IEMs that just sounds right. Or do you simply not hear any differences between a $50 cable and a $1,000 cable? I'd love to hear your experiences and your thoughts. Share it with me in the comment section down below, and please be respectful. At the end of the day, we're all about sharing our experiences, not trying to prove who's right or who's wrong. Perception of sound will always be a subjective matter, no matter how objective you try to make it to be. Once again, I'd like to thank Damien and Effect Audio for this opportunity, and thank you all very much for watching. Until the next experience, take care and happy listening.